The Self-Publishing Advice Conference, SelfPubCon 2025, brings indie authors from around the world together for 2 days of insight, inspiration, and connection. It's live online October 18 and 19 and free to attend. Get early access to our international competition and all the latest conference updates at selfpublishingadvice.org/conference-2025. Welcome to Self-Publishing with ALLi from the Alliance of Independent Authors. This week, Anna Featherstone discusses production and distribution, guiding indie authors through the many ways to create, publish, and distribute their books. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Gatekeeper Press, your partner in independent publishing, empowering authors with expert guidance, 100% rights, 100% royalties, global distribution, and all-inclusive services, from editing to marketing. Gatekeeper Press, where authors are family. And now, here's your host, Anna Featherstone.
Hello, and a warm welcome to you wherever you are on this precious and stunningly beautiful planet we are so lucky to share. I'm your host, Anna Featherstone, and I'm coming to you today from the traditional lands of the Garigal people in what is now known as the Northern Beaches area of Sydney, Australia. I'm a few weeks into a fab pet sitting stay here, and today we're speaking with another author who lives coastside, but about an 11-hour drive north of here in Queensland. Welcome, Fiona Tarr.
Hi, how you going, Anna?
Yeah, so good. Thank you for joining us. I can't wait to learn more about how you go about producing and distributing your books. But first, I'd love to give listeners a little bit more backstory because writing runs in your family. Bear with me because this reads like a bit of a literary thriller. Fiona's great uncle was Australian literary author George Johnston, who wrote the much acclaimed anti-war novel My Brother Jack. That was released back in 1964. So George ended up marrying another great Australian writer, Charmaine Clift, and they lived for many years on the Greek island of Hydra, mingling with people including Canadian poet Leonard Cohen. It was later revealed that Charmaine had given birth to a daughter when she was 19 who was adopted out, and that daughter grew up a Suzanne chick. And at 48, she discovered who her famous mother was and wrote a book about it. Then Suzanne's daughter, Gina Chick, became the first female winner of the Australian Alone series. And at the time, she was also the oldest contestant in the history of the Alone series worldwide to win. And Jorna's gone on to write a fabulous memoir, We Are the Stars, which rocketed up the bestseller list. And she's a much-loved speaker on the Writers' Festival circuit. So, Fiona, that's some family writing history you're connected to.
Yes, it goes back a long way, but yeah, I've been writing in generations for a long time.
Yeah, and now you're a six-figure author yourself, and your own work has been compared to Jane Harper, Patricia Wolfe. So tell us a little about your writing journey and how you came to publish your first book.
I started writing when I was a kid, I guess, when you start writing poetry in your angsty teenage years. I remember one of my high school English teachers said to me, "Oh, you write really well. You should think about writing." And I went, "Yeah, oh, okay, yep, whatever." And then life went on, and when I was not quite 40, 2007, I started writing a book because we'd taken over a business and I was bored and thought writing might be good fun. So I just started writing a fiction book, and that's where it took me 6 years to write that book, and then the publishing kind of carried on from there.
Oh my goodness. So from poetry to how many books now have you written?
28 if you count a couple of novellas that I've done as well.
Oh my gosh. So you write bold and suspense, strong female leads, and mostly in rural small town Australia. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I do have one's romantic suspense series set in Adelaide, so I guess some people would still call that a small country town.
Yeah.
But yeah, the two major series I've got running at the moment, one's in Coober Pedy and the other one's set in Cooktown in far north Queensland. So
okay, and Coober Pedy, for people who don't know it, it's like the Opal Field mining area. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of surrounded by desert. It has some, picturesque native title art and areas like that. But it also has pastoral farming. So farms that are 10,000 square kilometres and 20,000 square kilometres of just open nothingness and hoping the cows will
Yeah.
find a bit of something to eat.
Oh my goodness. And that one's been described as a fast-paced, action-packed thrill ride through the outback, yeah?
Yeah, I love that quote. It's actually that quote's from one of my my advanced readers. She's actually
Huh.
an RFDS nurse, so she knows the area well, and she said she loves the atmospheric, environment that I've created around those stories.
And for people who don't know what the RFDS is, it's the Royal Flying Doctor Service. And this is basically like a hospital in a plane that travels through the outback to rescue people, pull people off stations. Yeah, what a great setting for your book as well. Like in such a great, fascinating area that is just rich in history and characters.
Yeah, I mean it allows me to blend, quirky characters, which definitely you'll find in Cooper Pedy. It allows me to blend that with a bit of Australiana and also bring in some of the native title Indigenous issues that, everyone maybe is not aware of. And I just touch on them briefly. I have Indigenous characters, a couple of Indigenous characters in the story. So it's good fun. I really enjoy it.
Brilliant. So, why did you switch from writing fantasy to mystery and romantic suspense?
Mainly because I just couldn't work my niche properly in fantasy. And I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. When I was, in your adult years, you're so busy doing life. I wasn't reading much fiction. I was reading a lot of nonfiction for work and for study and for all sorts of other things. So when it came time to actually start writing a fiction book, I started with the actual biblical fantasy. And the reason I did that is I'd come out of working with social services and church groups. And I was just a little bit, confused. I needed to kind of blurt everything out, and it came out as a fantasy novel based on the story of David. But it never found its market because it didn't really appeal to biblical Christian religious readers, and it didn't appeal to the wider fantasy market. And it took me 3 series before I realized fantasy just wasn't my genre. As in, the books are good, they get good reviews, but finding a market for them was extremely difficult because I didn't write in a particular niche of the fantasy market.
And was it hard for you to leave that series behind when you realized that?
I wound them up. I don't like to leave a series hanging. I don't think that's fair for readers because I did have a reader base for those. The first series I wound up in 5 books. The next 2 series I wound up in 3. 3 just seems like an easy number to work with. They're open-ended, so they could carry on at some later date, but I've found that writing the crime mystery novels with strong female leads and that kind of, quirky Aussie character is just easy for me. It just works and I enjoy doing it. So I'm sticking with that one.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little about distribution. So your books are exclusive to Amazon, but nearly every book you launch is available in Kobo, Nook, or Apple for the entire pre-order period. Is that correct?
It is correct. It's a legacy of the fact that I had a very small reader base from my fantasy work who were wide, because when I released the fantasy books, I did release them wide. I tried Kindle Unlimited, but like anything, if you're not marketing well and the product's not hitting the market, Kindle Unlimited reads aren't great. So I took them out of Kindle Unlimited, put them into wide. And because I have that small fan base within the wide community, I think it's unfair to, not make the books easily available to them. I used to leave them in wide for 2 weeks after launch, but I found the demand in Kindle Unlimited high. I'd get lots of messages saying, it's not in Kindle Unlimited. Why is it not in Kindle Unlimited? So these days I actually release it into Kindle Unlimited pretty much as soon as it goes live. So
And then you turn it off, obviously, and you have to for Kobo, Nook, and Apple.
correct, yeah. So I go in, I turn them off and make sure they're unpublished because, you can't put it into KU if it's not fully unpublished in all the other places. It's usually really good. I mean, I turn them off and most of the time within 24 hours, they're down from all the sites. And then I make it live in Kindle Unlimited.
And are you doing that direct from your own dashboards with those other outlets, or are you using an aggregator so you just have to do it once?
I use Draft to Digital because it's just simple for me to upload them there, and they also have the library distribution from there. And we're now allowed to put our KU books back into libraries, which is fabulous. So all I had to do was go in and start clicking a few buttons, and they're uploading back to the library network.
And that is like great, isn't it? Like that ability to have a distribution strategy that works for your readers and for you. How long is your pre-order period with those books in those other outlets?
It used to be 3 months because I was only working on one series, and I would release 4 books a year. But now it's actually up to 6 months because I'm staggering between 2 different series. So a book within one series might take 6 months for the next one to come out, but I'm still releasing every 3 months. It's just back and forth between the two series.
I almost feel like that is almost like the perfect have your cake and eat it too strategy. Like you're getting a whole 6 months or 3 to 6 months of selling your books on all the platforms, but then, going into KU. That's really good. Do you know a lot of authors doing that?
I know a couple of other authors that are now doing it. I believe Philippa Clark has taken on that same model. I am not sure how long she leaves it wide before she puts it into Kindle Unlimited, but she's gradually moving some of her books over to Kindle Unlimited as well, particularly her crime fiction books. So it's kind of one of those strategies it's worked for me, and obviously we talk amongst ourselves, so it might be working for other authors as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So what do you do with your paperbacks then? How do you distribute your paperbacks?
So my paperbacks, I keep a small quantity myself for distributing on my own website in Australia. I do quite a few library talks, and I distribute my books through the libraries that way. And also I have libraries that order direct from me because it's just more convenient for them to do that. They get them quicker. And I believe the pricing is pretty similar to what they're paying anyway. So I find that overseas, though, my distribution is through the normal online channels, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all those other types of outlets. But I am investigating ways that I might be able to drop ship from my website to those overseas locations. But paperback demand is nowhere near as high as the Kindle, version, because that just seems to be where indies kind of find their niche.
And are you using for the print Ingram Spark? So a mix of Ingram Spark and KD as well?
Yeah, so I publish on Amazon. I use the same ISBN to publish into Ingram Sparks. I do that because otherwise you get a conflict. You end up with 2 versions of your paperback on Amazon because you can't turn off Amazon distribution within the Ingram Sparks network. So the best way to handle that is to ensure that you use the same ISBN. Amazon will always prioritize their own drop ship print on demand method, and if for any reason they can't, they'll pick up and send an Ingram Spark version. So,
and I know so many people are like, do I load with Ingram Spark first, or do I load with Amazon first? What do you do?
I found the Amazon one is the easiest and quickest to do, and it also, because they do a final spell check or scan, I do my digital manuscript first, and that way it'll pick up if there's a spelling error or something that I've overlooked, or even a formatting error. Then I will upload the Amazon version of the paperback, and then I'll put it up onto Ingram Sparks. And by then I know that by the time it gets to Ingram Sparks, I'm not going to have to be, the proofing process is longer there, so I know I'm not going to be holding everything up.
Okay, so you mentioned before libraries. So what's your approach to getting them to stock your books?
So that's kind of reader demand because I advertise on Facebook. A lot of my Facebook readers Facebook fans will sort of say, I can't get your book in the local shop. How can I get access to it? And I'll say, well, ask your local library. They'll be able to stock it for you. Also, that's how I drive the requirement for me to go around to different libraries. I will actually ask my readers, hey guys, I'm heading this way in this period of time. If you'd like me to visit your local library, hassle your librarian to contact me, and we'll try and tee it up for you. So that's how I first started doing libraries, because I wasn't really sure what the demand would be like and how receptive the libraries would be. But once it's reader driven and the readers are tapping on the door saying, oh, we want this lady to come and visit, it seems to have the best effect. So
It's amazing, isn't it, when readers they pretty much roll out the red carpet for you, so you don't even have that problem of contacting libraries because they're doing it all for you.
Yeah, I mean, and also you meet, once you've met a couple of librarians, they say, oh, we know the librarians at such and such and such and such. And, next time you're coming this way, let us know and we'll tee up some other locations for you to visit. So they're very proactive, particularly regional libraries or rural libraries, because they are looking for a draw card. They're looking for something interesting for their local readers to engage with. And if they can bring in a popular local author, then they're going to do that because it's just going to create some momentum for their marketing campaigns as well.
And obviously, you're doing a good job once you get there if they're prepared to then recommend you on. So, what do you think helps ensure a good turnout and a good library event?
So the last event actually was sold out, so I didn't have to do much work for that one at all. Previous events, I've run Facebook ads leading up to it. So about a week leading up to the event, I'll actually do a very basic, advert to that geographical area and ensure that I can kind of pick up anybody that might not be going to the library all the time. They might be reading my books electronically and don't go to the library, but they'll turn up to the library for an event. So I just try and grab extra numbers that way, and it helps out the library to build the numbers for the event.
Oh, it sure does. I bet they're so excited that you're, supporting them back. How do you like engage people at those events then? Are you doing in conversations or are you doing a presentation?
I discuss it with the librarians, and each library is a little bit different. Most of the libraries that are larger will have an events management team, and they will actually organise to interview me. So it'll be a sit-down conversation. You have an interview, then you're open to questions with the people in the audience to see if there's anything they want to know. Occasionally, if you go to a smaller rural library, you will do it more like a presentation. One of the things, I haven't had to do it yet, but one of the things I plan to do if I get to a quiet spot is I was going to actually get the librarian to hand out questions so that the people in the audience could actually ask the questions, but they'd be questions that, I would have actually pre-formulated. But I haven't had to do that because once you kind of get the ball rolling, you only need one person to ask one question, and all of a sudden everybody's asking questions, and it makes it a lot easier to get things going.
Exactly. I know there's an author, Maggie Walters, who wrote a memoir about her life with multiple personality disorder or dissociative identity disorder. And she, because it's, such a personal topic, and she wanted to help readers along, she did the same. Like she wrote all these different questions out and popped them in a little bag. So readers could just pull out any question. Oh, sorry, people at the library could pull out any question and ask, but it got it going. But then everyone, as soon as they knew it was, they could ask her anything, they just all started asking their own questions. So it's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, I've been, I can coax a question and start a conversation, and even just pose a few questions myself and say, oh, you might be wondering, or you might be asking this or whatever. And once you get the conversation going, there's usually two or three people that'll start getting into it, and then all of a sudden you can't, you're actually fighting to work out which lot of hands you're going to answer first. So I really enjoy engaging with readers because that way they're driving the conversation rather than you driving the conversation. Sitting there and listening to a presentation can be rather boring if you're not hitting the interests of the group. So
Yeah. Oh, and okay. So with that, in like you looking after your readers, I see you set up a readers club, and obviously that helps just with community, but also direct distribution as well. And you offer welcome gifts to people who join the Readers Club. So tell us a little about how your Readers Club works and the advantages and disadvantages for authors of running one.
Sure. I mean, readers clubs, or a newsletter database can be time consuming at first. It takes a little bit of setting up. I have an onboarding sequence, which is a sequence of emails that goes out to everybody when they join that kind of introduces me. It might introduce other books within the catalogue, and it opens them to, a communication channel, I guess, so that they know that they can email me and ask me questions and we can chat. So, and I also invite them to social media and those things. So that takes a little bit to set it up, but once it's set up and it's automated, it's just doing itself all in the background and you're not really thinking about it. I have two onboarding options. One is in the back of the book. The back of the book is a different onboarding sequence to the one on my website, or the one that I might send out to other, on Facebook, or I might share somewhere else. So one of them gives away a novella from the start. And then it has a different onboarding sequence. And the one that is in the back of the book, they're already warm readers. They're already people that have finished your book. And if they got to the end and they got to that sign-on, then I want to give them a little gift, which I do, and then I want to surprise them with the second gift. So the first one is just a deleted scene that I took out of the very first book, and I tell them the funny story that goes along with it, and that is I ended up with 2 Saturdays. So I just basically had to remove an overnight scene. So that ended up in the deleted scenes, and I give them that. And then from there, afterwards, I give them the novella that they would have gotten anyway if they joined through the other outlets. So it just, it doubles up the gifts because they're already existing readers and they're keen to keep reading what I'm producing. So.
Yeah, and I love that those words that you originally wrote haven't gone to waste.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I tell them it's unedited. It never went to the editing phase because obviously as I went through my initial edits, I went, oh, okay, I've got the wrong timeline. So it's pretty rare for me to do that, but in this particular book, I did it. So yeah, I think it's a great way to engage with readers, and that reader group list also did have, I've actually just taken it off. It had an invitation to join my advanced reader team, but I've got over 120 advanced readers now, so I don't actually need any more. So I've taken that particular, email out of the sequence.
Oh my goodness. 120 advanced readers.
Yeah. So they do a wonderful job for me too. So pretty much they get an advanced copy of the book under the understanding that obviously that they're reading it. They're not just reading it to possibly review it later. They're also reading it to let me know if we've missed a typo or if there's anything that's jarring, or, I mean, obviously once it gets to that stage, it's been through the editing process. It's been through my beta reading team. We're pretty confident it's good, but I've got a couple of, school teachers on that advanced reading group, and they'll often find a typo that we've missed. So they're gold, honestly. They make sure that book goes out as clean as possible.
We all need those teachers on our list, that is for sure.
Totally.
So what about audiobooks? What are you doing around the production and distribution of audiobooks?
Audiobooks were really scary for me to start off with. You look at how much money you have to outlay and you're going like, am I going to make my money back? So I held off for quite a while on the Opal Field series because I was nervous about investing the amount of money that needed to go into a narrator. But once the sales started really going well, and you get to a point where, to be honest, you have to start investing in your business to grow your business, and tax deductions are necessary to keep the business model going. I figured I might as well be paying a narrator rather than paying the tax man. So that's when I decided that it was time to look at narration. And just as I did that, I was actually contacted by Ulverscroft, a UK publishing company that publish under a couple of different labels in Australia, predominantly do audiobooks and large print books. And they approached me about the Opal Field series, but we were already in the first book production phase with the narrator that I'd selected, and we discussed it and we decided that it was probably best to stick with what I was doing. But Ulverscroft had picked up the second series, the Dawngrave series, that's out now. So,
and is that like a load off your mind, knowing that you have them organising that for you, or do you kind of wish you still had the control, or what do you think?
I totally wish I still had the control because I'm a bit of a control freak, and when you do your when you do your own books, you set your own schedule. The only thing that holds me up is my narrator, and Courtney's caught up with the series now. So as we move forward, we're going to be able to release fairly close to the release of the ebook and paperback. But when you're dealing with a publishing house, they say things like they can't publish more than one book a quarter, and when you've already got 4 books ready to go, that means your readers are waiting. So it's kind of like a catch-22 situation. You've got this situation where people might not pick the first book up until there's more books out, but then the publishing house are going from figures from that first book, so they might not pick the rest of the books up if they don't get enough figures on that first book. So it's kind of a little bit of a tricky situation, and I'm not sure how it will pan out. So far, we're 2 books in, and I'm really pleased with, working with Croft. And I'm liking the idea of being hybrid and having the 2 different models, but I'm still on the fence about which one's going to be best in the long term. I think I will be my next series, which is a spin-off from the Opal Fields. I think that will actually, I'll do that myself again, I think.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it, though, being able to experiment with different models and working things out and seeing what works best for you. It's one of the best benefits of being an indie, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think being an indie gives you a chance to explore lots of different avenues. And then, if you can work out, like you said, which one's working best for you, time-wise, financial-wise, all those sorts of things. Because, there's some things that I've done and I've realized there's just way too much time consumption involved. I'm missing out on writing time. And at the end of the day, I'm a writer. So if I'm not producing books and I'm not putting them out into the marketplace, I'm wasting my time. On something that I could actually farm out to somebody else. So it's that kind of balancing act that you have to do.
Yes, creation and then all the rest.
Yep.
Okay, so what about translations? What are you up to in that space?
So the Opalfield series has been translated into German and French. The German translations I did through an organisation that were using a combination of AI and a proofreader. The French, I've actually followed Catherine Bilson's kind of model, and I'm just going through Shadowscribe to get them into AI, done by the AI. I could put them through a proofreader, but by the time you pay the proofreader, realistically, the reviews I'm getting on the ones that were done by the company that did them with the proofreaders and the ones that are done without are very similar. So it doesn't matter, which version you use, you're going to have some people that are finding the translations a little bit jarring or not quite as clean as they would like. But at the end of the day, when you take another language and you take English and you put it into another language, a lot of the nuances that are in our language are very hard to capture in other languages. So
Oh, totally. It's like Australian slang and different names, and it is very, very difficult. And Catherine was recently on the podcast as well, and she was describing too how even like uploading things in the French store can be different because they don't have the same categories as Amazon US and
yeah, exactly. And so that's, there's a little bit of research that goes into it. There's also, I'm putting money into ads, but I'm not pouring it in at this stage because we're just still seeing how they're evolving. But at the moment, we're definitely, making money back. We're definitely starting to see a profit return on those. And it's all about exactly what I said before. It's about, investing in the future of your business. So it might cost you a little bit now, but if you're making the money and you have the funds available, then long term, you're going to have those investments rolling over without too much effort. So,
and I see that. So you write in series, but every book is a standalone. Was that just how you write, or did you plan that strategically?
It's a combination of both. I think I don't like to leave too many open ends. I like puzzles to be solved myself. So wouldn't really have liked to have left, and I don't like cliffhangers myself. You watch a television series and they go, okay, well, that's the end of this season. Now you have to wait for next season. I just think that's kind of cruel and, it's a form of torture, I reckon. So for me, I wanted to make sure that readers were satisfied at the end of each book, satisfied enough that they would still have something or some sort of hook to go on with, but not be dissatisfied with the story that they just read. So it was intentional from a marketing perspective, but it was also a personal preference that the story wrap up, at least that existing murder is solved. So,
wow. Yeah, I love that idea, like that blend of giving the readers what they want, but also having that extra ability to keep them going in that series. I think it's a really smart way to approach it. So
yeah, I think that people get invested. So I think people get invested into the characters. So having a backstory that needs to be solved over a series of books is just a way to keep readers engaged with that character and get to know them a little bit better. Whereas, finishing off the story arc of an actual book is just, a way of giving them some sort of resolution. So
I love it. And is it true that you're writing and releasing 4 books a year?
Yep, that's what I do. Yeah. So I would like to do more, but 4 is comfortable. So that's where I'm sticking with at the moment.
Yeah. And that you also still have time, though, to take 3 months off to travel.
Yeah, so I write in blocks. So I escape Noosa Sunshine Coast in winter because although our days are quite warm, our nights start to get pretty cold. I'm also a water sports person, so we often get, the conditions here for the water sports I do aren't great. So I head north into far north Queensland where the water's warmer and the wind is the right direction. So that's one of the reasons why I go north, but also one of the series is set in Cooktown, so I do a little bit more research. I do a little bit more location scouting. But that 3 months, can't write while I'm on the road. I'm just not focused enough. I'm not able to sit down. I start to lose track of where I am in the story because I'm an I don't know what you call it, discovery writer, a pantster, whatever you want to call it. So I kind of need to write in that big block. Otherwise, the continuity of the story suffers, and then I just have to do too much editing. So I tend to not write unless I can sit down and spend 30 days just drafting out my story, and then I can easily edit any, plot inconsistencies through an edit phase. So,
Are there any other locations you're eyeing off for a new series?
the next series is actually back in Adelaide because I've wrote myself into a corner. Pretty much the Foxy Mystery series, which gave me a glimpse of, writing in the mystery genre. It's a romantic suspense based around a high-class escort who basically becomes a PI. She becomes a PI, and Jenny, who is the lead character in the Opalfield series, she starts to appear from the second book in that series. And while I was writing that series, I actually kind of really loved Jenny. I just got to the stage, by the time I finished that series, I went, I have to write Jenny's backstory. So I went back and wrote Jenny's backstory, but as a typical pantster, I didn't really plot out where things were going. And I realized I had this two relationship thing going with Jenny. So without having spoilers, I have to wrap up the Opalfield series in a positive way, but then draw people back into Adelaide and explain why Jenny's life changed and why she ended up not in Cooper Pedy for the rest of her life. So, yeah, but I do have a lot of demand for that series. So, and I'm really looking forward to it because it gives me a chance to explore Jenny as a detective, which is who she was in the Foxy Mystery series, rather than a young constable. A little bit more naive, whereas when she gets to Adelaide, she's going to be a little bit more mature.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It's you. It's kind of like your books are now directing your life. Because now you've got to head back to Adelaide for more research, probably. And that's so interesting. Like your characters are like bossing you around.
Well, that's a typical pantster, isn't it? It's like, you go, no, I didn't want that to happen. It's like, oh, but it happened. You're going to have to deal with it. So,
love it. Production wise, do you use any particular programs to write and lay out your books?
no, I'm a little bit old school. I just use Microsoft Word, and then I let Draft to Digital format it in their basic format. I looked at using formatting software. I looked at using all sorts of other programs, but I decided that the time it would take me to learn to use those programs, I probably could have written another book. So I did for a little while. I used a professional formatter, but then I found that the product wasn't really any different from what I was able to produce myself. And the template I use for my paperbacks I've had forever. When I first started in 2007 writing, I did a really quick course with some Australian ladies who were quite early on in the indie industry, and they had a paperback template, and I've adopted that, and that's pretty much what I've used forever. So,
Oh my goodness. I love that. Like you can talk to so many different authors, and what we always learn is everyone can use something different and it can still work out.
exactly. And, it depends on how fancy. I mean, if I did fantasy and I wanted really fancy interiors and, headers with pictures or something like that, then maybe I'd be looking at using some software. But for the simple version of a thriller or crime novel, a lot of simplicity goes into the formatting of a paperback. And at the end of the day, when you put it up to KDP, they kind of rework their internal formatting anyway. So there's not a lot that you really need to do your end except to have, your table of contents, which is pretty straightforward to do with Draft to Digital.
Mm-mm. Okay, so part of your strategy as well, when you release a book, you always have the next book available on pre-order with the cover and the blurb ready. How important is that for keeping your series momentum going?
It's really important because I discovered the Opalfield series. I'd intended 6 books in the series. And what happened is, so I took pre-orders right up to book 6, and then I started the new series and had a pre-order for the new series in the back of book 6. The pre-orders, when I kind of had a lot of popularity from the series where people asking me to carry on. And when I went to produce book 7, the pre-orders were nowhere near as high as book 6. So it really made it evident to me that if I had that book 7 ready at the end of book 6, the pre-orders would have just kept climbing. So it's super important to have that pre-order link in the back of your latest release, even if you haven't got a final cover, even if you haven't got a final blurb. I mean, I prefer to do it that way because it just saves a lot of admin later. But if you haven't got, even if you don't have it ready for another year, if you've got that pre-order link in the back of the current book that you're just about to release, you're going to capture the person when they're in that moment of having read your book, enjoyed it, and they just click and buy, and you don't have to worry about trying to capture them later on.
It's so hard. Like, as authors, many of us are just like impatient. We want our books just out there, like just get it out, get it read. But that kind of strategic approach where you're really planning and executing is very disciplined. But sometimes you can do everything right and even advertise the heck out of a series and it still doesn't sell. Has that happened to you? Like, have you ever I suppose you have abandoned a series.
Yeah, I mean, I abandoned my fantasy series because, I stopped being able to, I just couldn't get momentum with them. And yes, I tried advertising them. What I found actually is, I paid advertising people to advertise it for me. But it became evident to me when they'd send you the pro forma that basically said, can you tell us in, 3 sentences what your story is about? I went, no, I can't. And that's when I realized that I can't be writing to market because I don't even know how to summarize my book really easily. And that kind of taught me a lesson. And coming off the back of those books, I did the Foxy Mystery series, which did gain some traction. When I advertised it, I increased sales, but I didn't make a profit out of it. So that told me that the read-through wasn't strong enough. That told me that I wasn't hitting the genre tropes better. I needed to do them better. But it gave me a glimpse of the genre that I needed to write. And I actually stopped writing, I think, for a full 6 months and focused on understanding what I needed to do within the genre or the subgenre, focused on authors that were similar to me and what their styles were like. And I did that by lots of reading. And I think I mentioned it earlier, I read a lot of nonfiction when I was, in my early adult years. So I wasn't really sure of which fiction genre I really liked until I started reading solidly for that period of time and studying exactly what was working and looking at the top 100 of each subgenre and going, actually, she writes like me and he writes a bit like me. And, we've got similar styles. What do their covers look like? What are their stories? What tropes are they putting in their stories? What are their stories momentum like? Who are their leads? And once I did that and studied the market, I realized that I needed to rework everything that I was doing. And once you have the right product, marketing it is easy. It sounds silly. I thought I hated advertising. I hated Facebook ads. I hated Amazon ads. I thought, oh my gosh, can't I just pay somebody to do this stuff? I hate it. But I actually really love advertising now because when you've got a product that you put up a new Facebook ad and all of a sudden you get boom, 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 lots of page reads and lots of orders, you finally realize that it wasn't the advertising that you were struggling with. It was finding your target audience. And it's much easier to find your target audience once you have your book in this little compacted environment where you know exactly who your reader is. It doesn't mean you have to change your voice. It means you have to find where your readers and your voice match. And finding that little sweet spot means that you find marketing far more easier.
Oh, I love that. It's not that you hate the advertising, it's just you haven't found your audience.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, production and distribution, what are some, and I suppose everything, the way you've approached everything, what are some of the key decisions that have helped you scale to the level where you are now?
I mean, I think you've touched on it, the discipline, the being able to pre-plan and project manage your author career, rather than just going, oh, I finished a book, the end, get it edited and chuck it out into the marketplace. It's actually being able to strategically plan how to move forward. And, even what we were talking about before, I know I have to write this other series in Adelaide, and I am looking forward to it, which is why I tried to close off the Opalfield series a few books ago. But, also working to the demand of my readers meant that I came up with a new story arc, and I've got this next 3 books ready to go. But the thing is that having planned out the process, I now know what my schedule is looking like for the next 12 months as far as which books I have to write and in what order I'm going to write them, and also making sure that I don't leave readers hanging. So when I finish up the Opalfield series, the first book in the new series is going to be on pre-order and ready to launch, because I don't want to leave them waiting and hanging for their answers to their questions. So I think pre-planning, being organised and not being impatient have been the things I really had to learn in order to plan my career out and make it work effectively.
Yeah. Okay. Something fascinating you said then. It's like, so your Opalfield series, so reader demand made you extend it from what it originally was. They wanted more, so you had to add more books. Like, how many readers do you need to hear from before you make that kind of a decision? Or what are they saying to you that makes you go, do you know what? I better actually add more books?
Well, there were 2 things that kind of drove that. One was people were commenting on Facebook that they were so sad the series was finished, and they wanted more. They loved Jenny, they loved Nick, who is is another character in the series. Nick should have his series of his own, and there's all these kind of conversations that are going on. So, and even when I went to libraries, I was hearing the same thing. Oh no, you can't stop! Like we're just just getting into it. So that kind of drove the demand for me to write more. But also sitting back, I thought, well, there is a little bit more of the story I can flesh out before I go to that next phase of my character's life. So I sat and spent a little bit of time coming up with that final story arc for these last 3 books. And I had, because I said I'd painted myself into this corner or written myself into a corner, I needed time to actually work out how to get out of it. So the readers kind of gave me that time inadvertently. I didn't realize I needed these 3 extra books to tell the story, but they did. They knew I needed these 3 extra books to tell the story. So
yeah, that's fantastic. So what are you excited about next for you as an entrepreneur? Like, where are you heading? Can you see yourself like sustaining this kind of output, and what are you excited about the whole thing happening in publishing around you at the moment?
I'm really excited to have reached the income level I'm at, to be able to have choices and have the freedom to make those choices. I'm excited about exploring more in the translations, making sure that the audios are brought up to date from my back catalogue, and having the time, that 3 months out each year, to be able to just reset and come back into my author life, and not turn it into a total job. I don't want it to be draining. I don't want it to be like an everyday job, 9 to 5, where you don't really want to go and do it. I just want to keep it at a sustainable level. So on one hand, you look at the income and you go, there's a lot of push, and there is within our, not just our industry, but within life, to keep pushing those figures up and up and up. But I've kind of had to remind myself that that's not what I set out to do. I didn't set out to be a 7-figure author. I set out to have a sustainable semi-retirement income, and I've already reached that. So I have to kind of, I'm looking forward to being able to, keep that level going as it is, and accepting that older series will slowly start to drop off a little bit, and they might need a little boost or a new cover. So I'm looking forward to expanding the business to the point where I don't fret about, sustaining the income. So
I think that's wonderful. Wonderful. And that whole thing of you don't have to push. You just find the balance that works for you. I think that's really important for people to hear as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's also difficult for people that are driven, because, you're driven by reader feedback, you're driven by reviews, you're driven by financial gains. So for me, I have to be really careful that I don't drive myself into an early grave. So I'm just wanting to make sure that I enjoy the ride, which I really struggle with as a person myself, is enjoying the journey. I tend to be very focused on the outcomes. So this whole author journey has taught me that sometimes you just got to sit back and enjoy the moment.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, thank you, Fiona. So where can our listeners find out more about you and your books?
So on my website, fionatarr.com, and also they can search Fiona Tarr on Facebook. They can keep in touch with me there. And they can find my books on Amazon, obviously, and on my website. So.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I feel like I want to actually read this Opal Fields book as well, because I've always been fascinated by the opal miners living down in their little holes in the dirt.
Well, hopefully you get a chance to read it. That would be lovely.
Exactly. Actually, have you ever stayed in one of those opal hotels underground?
No, it's on my to-do list. I've been to Cooper Pedy a few times, but it's usually been passing through the area. I haven't spent a lot of time in the area, which, seems silly. I spend a lot of time in Cooktown, but I haven't spent a lot of time in Cooper Pedy. But I do want to get back, but you really do have to pick your time of year because it's hot as hell most of the year.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you again, Fiona. And to all of you out there, sharing like Fiona's just done, and you sharing, whether it's sharing your creativity with readers or sharing encouragement and good vibes with other writers, what makes being an author such a buzz and so fun. So thank you for being a part of the ALLi Podcast family and for sharing your time with us. And until next time, go on, get out of here, get writing and publishing. Thank you, Fiona.
Thanks, Anna.
You've been listening to Self-Publishing with ALLi with Anna Featherstone. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Gatekeeper Press, your partner in independent publishing, empowering authors with expert guidance, 100% rights, 100% royalties, global distribution, and all-inclusive services, from editing to marketing. Gatekeeper Press, where authors are family. And if you haven't already, we invite you to join our organization and become a self-publishing ally. You can do that at allianceindependentauthors.org.